Welcome to Diverse and Inclusive Leaders. This is a show where we speak with the most inspirational and thought-provoking leaders of today and unearth their unique stories of diversity and inclusion to help inspire, educate and motivate others to make the world a better place. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Katherine Robinson. Now, Katherine is a Senior Business Development Manager at Walgreen Boots Alliance in the Boots UK division. She's also the Vice Chair of the Women of Walgreen Boots Alliance UK Business Resource Group. She studied a Chartered Manager's degree in Leadership and Management at Nottingham Business School and Trent University. And really excitingly, the women of WBA have recently been accoladed with the ACE Award by the Healthcare Business Women's Association in recognition of their commitment as a business resource group to ensuring that gender diversity and leadership opportunities are absolutely at the forefront of everything they do. A very warm welcome to the show, Katherine.
Thank you, Leila.
Thank you.
I'm really excited to join you. Sorry.
Really excited to have you here, and it's brilliant to hear about the accolade, I must say, and really excited to kind of dive deep into how you guys and girls achieved that award with you being at the helm and at the forefront. But before we do that and get into the nuts and bolts of today's show, I wonder whether you could give us a little bit of a background to how you came to be where you are today, because I understand you worked for Boots for a long time actually before being where you are, and obviously having the dual hat of leading the women's group.
Yeah, definitely. So I've been at Boots for 18 years now, which it still surprises me to this day when I say how long I've been with the organisation. I've been fortunate to work in various different parts of Walgreens over the years, and I actually started my career as a Saturday girl at my local store on a 4-hour-a-week contract, and then progressed my career throughout my first degree at university, graduating, and then became a trained dispenser with Boots, working in various different store roles before I moved into the support office 11 years ago. So I was a store manager, and then I transitioned into the Boots support office, and have done varying different roles in leadership and management throughout the last 7 years in the support office across our global brands division, our retail international division, and where I am at the moment within Boots UK. So quite a varied and exciting background, and I think it puts me in great stead that I've been able to work in stores and in the support office, so I can see both sides of the coin as well from that front.
Fantastic. So you have that real boots on the ground experience, as well as obviously now being where you are, which I think is a phenomenal story. And I must ask, before we kind of get into perhaps talking about your personal story as well, did you think when you were doing your Saturday job that you'd end up being there all that time, and obviously now kind of leading the women's network, which is, a great achievement?
Yeah, definitely. No, at the time I didn't. I can remember I was talking to I've got a twin brother who went for the same role. So we both went for this interview at the local store for the same job. And we were talking about it not that long ago, actually, that where maybe our paths would have been different had he had got the job versus me. So thinking back to that 17-year-old Saturday girl, no, I wouldn't have ever said that I would be where I am, but massively proud to work for such a fantastic organisation. And I'm so fortunate for the opportunities that I've had along the way as part of that as well.
Oh, bless you. And I love that as well about being a twin. I've always wondered what it would be like being a twin. Is there ever kind of any sibling rivalry at all?
We're not too bad. We bicker a lot. But yeah, no, we're not too bad. Quite close though, because I mean, you've gone through all the key milestones throughout your life, through school and education and things like that together. So really, really close in that respect.
Oh, lovely. So you don't ever have that thing where you can tell what each other is about to say or what each other is thinking?
No, not really. I mean, we could probably second guess what each other's are thinking from the looks of on each other's face, I think. But no, we've not got that twin sense going on.
So tell me a little bit about the personal background then, because obviously you have your twin brother. I know you have a number of other siblings as well. It'd be
Yeah.
fantastic to learn about some of the personal pieces, because really, and especially with inclusion now being a key pillar externally for War Green Boots Alliance, which I think is, fantastic as an organisation to do that in such a public manner. It's, that bridge between the personal life and also the business life, started to, especially in the recent times, has become ever more, blended together.
Yeah, definitely. It's great to see inclusion being recognised by the company. So personally, I was brought up by my mum as a single parent. Like you said, I've got a number of siblings. So I've got my twin, got an older brother, and I've also got an older sister who's got severe learning disabilities and autism. My mum brought us all up single-handedly. I'm back in a time probably where there was still a lot of stigma attached to coming from a single parent household. We come from an area that's probably a deprived area, so it's an ex-mining pit villages. So back in the day, they would have been thriving, but as a result of all the pit closures, it's not what it used to be. And I suppose during the time when we were growing up, we would have been a statistic that had been written off before we even came into education. So people from my background wouldn't have necessarily gone through university. Both of my brothers and myself went to university, got a degree. My mum made sure that she really championed us as individuals and made sure that we got the education that we deserved, and made sure she took a lot of sacrifices for that as well. And there was a lot of stigma, I think, growing up as coming from a single parent household. So yeah, my mum's a true inspiration in that respect, that she kind of she definitely championed diversity and inclusion before I even knew what it meant. So she's a huge role model for me in that respect. And I definitely credit where I am today as a result to my mum, actually.
I absolutely love that. And thank you so much for sharing such a personal and heartfelt story. And do you know what is amazing about the literally the couple of sentences that you have talked through there is you've already touched on so many different aspects of diversity, inclusion, and belonging. And I know that we've obviously had the opportunity to meet and chat beforehand with the wider War Green Boots Alliance organisation, but there are so many different facets that make up each of us as human beings. Like, clearly you've got a huge amount of, resilience, confidence from your mum and your upbringing, which I think is wonderful. But just in that short nutshell, you basically talked about, visible and invisible disabilities. You talked about, single parent families, parental and caring responsibilities. You're a champion for gender additionally. And there's a social mobility aspect as well, and how actually, I think you've almost epitomized the fact that, past should not dictate the future, having this, confidence and ability to really step up to the mark as you have done. I'm sure that your mum is incredibly proud, and I'm sure your siblings are as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the intersectionality between the diversity is definitely something that I'm looking more into, because like you say, I'm a female, but I'm a female from a single parent deprived background, and I've got a sister who's, like you say, who's got an invisible disability. So there's all those different elements to it. And I think diversity and inclusion is definitely getting to the point where it's seeing people as a more rounded individual, as opposed to almost typing them into the boxes of, well, therefore you're female, so we'll make sure that from a gender diversity perspective we're looking after you. So it's looking at that multifaceted dimension and supporting individuals, and that's what I'm a huge advocate of. I mean, I'm the vice chair of the women of WBA-UK, but for me, diversity and inclusion is more than just about gender, and I'm a huge champion of every individual should have the same rights to education and to development and to workplace. It shouldn't matter about your background and where you come from or your upbringing. Everyone should have those equal chances available to them.
I couldn't have said it better myself. And the key piece to mention is until we ask those questions, we don't know what sits below the surface level. And so when you talk about this holistic manner and the fact that there's a number of different facets there, many of them are invisible. You wouldn't
Yeah.
know. We might make, the presumptions that actually, you could have gone to, public school or whatever. People don't necessarily know. And so, as you rightly say, with this being so humanistic, with this being so about the individual, asking those questions so we can find out more and unearth what is happening below the surface, actually, it's a very, very good thing. But talk to me on the gender point, which I think is a perfect segue, because obviously, you've done some, WBA, you've done some groundbreaking things when it comes to really moving the dial with gender diversity and many other different aspects. Talk to me a little bit about some of the core facets of the success of the business resource groups. Obviously, it's one number of awards, which is wonderful. What can other organizations learn from the successes and or even the challenges that you've experienced in order to get to that place?
Yeah, so the Women of WBA in the UK, we've been established now as a business resource group for about 18 months. And I was elected in as vice chair from the start. We were quite fortunate that we've got a business resource group that we partner with in the US that have been established a little bit longer. And upon initial conversations that we had with them, they were launching something called learning journeys, which were 7-week self-led program to their members that faced into specific topics that women are generally adversely affected in the workplace. So topics like negotiation skills, building confidence, building your own personal brand, those types of things. So it just sent to us as a no-brainer that we could take some of their content and their learnings and launch them in the UK. So we launched them, I think, quite quickly. Gosh, it's been a whirlwind of a year. Fantastic. I'm trying to think, about 14 months ago, and we've done 3 different learning journeys through that time. And the feedback that we get from the members is just absolutely fantastic. The difference that they can make to them. They know that they're accessing a piece of development and training, and they're going to be supported alongside like-minded people. So it's a really encouraging and supporting environment. It's a way to network across the business with people that they wouldn't usually work with. And it gives them different tools and techniques that they take away and can try out through those 7 weeks period, but then implement them in their everyday life and following on from that. And it's specifically the work around the learning journeys that got us the award. So championing women into leadership, which was fantastic, because I just think I can't shout enough about them, because I think they're a great program of activity for our members. So we've got the leaning circles as well that we've implemented. So taking from Sheryl Sandberg's leaning organisation and they're almost like mentoring circles. And again, they're the safe havens for women. And we've seen that they've been a great safe space for our members, particularly through the pandemic and through lockdown, when we've moved to a more virtual way of working. They've been a huge support again to our members, and some of the tools again and techniques that have been available through the organisation to our members to implement has been fantastic. The leaning circles and the learning journeys have just been a great pieces of programs to launch this last 18 months.
I concur on the peer-to-peer learning. As you know, with Dial, it is absolutely about that shared experience and the network as well. But I'm going to pick up on something that you mentioned there, if you don't mind, around negotiation skills, building confidence and personal branding, because we too hear from women in particular that they don't necessarily have that confidence, or they find it difficult to say no. I wonder whether you'd be able to expand a little bit on some of those key aspects, because I'm thinking about those who are listening in thinking, oh yes, and I find it difficult to negotiate, or I find it difficult to kind of put my head above the parapet, especially when it may be a room full of guys, for example. I wonder, first of all, any kind of stories that you've had, or particular poignant pieces from those different areas that seem to be kind of recurring themes, and any advice for those that are listening in today, females or males who could really ask for additional support within their own organizations.
Yeah, definitely. So I think one particular topic that was really interesting, actually, that we touched on as part of the building confidence was imposter syndrome. One of the fantastic pieces of part of the learning journeys is we get a senior leader that comes from our business to talk to our members. They do a kick-off session and they share their experience of how they've dealt with that particular topic. So we had a senior leader that came in and spoke about their issues that they faced in with confidence throughout their career, and also about imposter syndrome and the need that women in particular feel they need to get to perfection. So a lot of the issues that I think we face from a gender perspective is around that women feel the need that we have to be perfect. And I think that's what some of the issues that then we face into in the confidence, and then with the imposter syndrome element of it. So it was just great to hear, actually, from some of the senior leaders and people. It brought it to life, and I think just talking about it makes it better. You understand that you're not the only person facing into these issues, particularly when it comes to building confidence. So my advice there would be to just get a little group of people together and talk about it, talk about your own experiences, talk about imposter syndrome, talk about issues when you felt that you need to be perfect, and when you've probably had issues with your own confidence, because you'll start to realize that you're not alone and everyone's facing into it. On negotiation skills, so for me, that was a huge eye-opener, if I'll be honest. I did a little bit of research before we went into that, and I was absolutely staggered to see that women are less likely to negotiate their starting salary. So upon retirement, the financial impacts just from not negotiating your starting salary is huge. So again, it just seemed like a complete no-brainer to get negotiation skills in there. And I think, again, it was just giving them tools and techniques that were available around negotiation skills and practicing it. So again, a safe environment where they felt comfortable and confident to practice those negotiation skills as well, with like-minded people, really, really helped.
That's incredibly insightful. And, I guess on the personal note, because you so kindly shared about your personal journey, say, for example, your mum as a single parent, knowing then having to look after a family, and many others who are single parents looking after families, if you are a female, knowing that you're less likely then, statistically so, to be negotiating the salary, and the repercussions and the impact then of that later on down the line, not only for the family, and also, it comes to things like pensions, you're put in so much more of an adverse situation, layering on top of that other aspects of diversity or other pieces, such as, I don't know, women of color in particular, as well. It really does drive home the absolute importance for organizations to take the time to invest in this diverse talent.
Yeah, definitely. And I think a lot of it comes down to education as well. So I don't think when we were having conversations with some of the women that they would see that they were that adversely affected by not negotiating their starting salary. So when you start to have these conversations, it's almost like a penny drop moment, that they almost think, actually, I'm doing myself a detriment by not doing this. So I'm going to stand up, and I'm going to make a stand for it, and I'm going to stand up for what I have the right to.
Absolutely. And I can visualize, or I am visualizing right now, lots of women listening into this kind of nodding their heads, as I have been whilst you've been talking. And so absolutely having those reminders, having that additional support, having those individuals around in a collective group in a safe space, as you say, because those safe spaces are so terribly important. Not an easy thing to talk about, issues such as, salary rises through to confidence in a room where you already feel perhaps quite different from those who are around you. So some really useful, key, valid points there as well. Moving on into other questions. Now, I ask this question of everyone, and I have to say, I always get really different answers, which I love because, diversity, everyone can be diverse, and diversity and inclusion, I think, often means different things to different people. And I wonder, what does diversity and inclusion mean to you personally?
Quite simply, for me, it's about empowering people to respect and appreciate the differences in each other, celebrating them and acknowledging that it's the differences that bring the true value to each other, and whether or not that's personally or professionally. It's the diverse nature of each individual that brings us together and makes us more powerful as a collective. And I just think that's quite a simplistic way, but I think it's quite a powerful way for me to remember it.
Absolutely, because every single one of us is different. And I mean, I often, and that's someone who I speak to quite regularly called Sandy Gold, says he sees these as superpowers. And I love that, because I think every single person has got a superpower. And, having that kind of glass half full mentality, which clearly you have in abundance, is something that we should be proud of, as opposed to what I've seen in the past when I look at kind of, historic diversity and inclusion, which I think is very, very different now, not being, almost perceived as this, victim type of mentality. Actually, it is, it's of real benefit and and real difference that we are able to harness different talents, different minds, different backgrounds in order to have that kind of that real smorgasbord of kind of innovation and mindset and everything.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, life would be boring, right, if we were all the same. And I think it's diversity brings challenge, which is great as well. And I think, yeah, it just means you're powerful, more powerful as a collective. And people's history, their backgrounds, their experiences are what makes them unique. And it's the uniqueness of every individual that's the value that should be brought to society and shouldn't be diminished. And we should encourage and empower that.
Absolutely. And one quick question, going slightly off piste here, just before we move on into the lightning round, for anyone who is running an employee resource group or a business resource group, which I particularly love about WBA, because this is a business strategic priority. It's not this is a nice to have, or we feel sorry for these types of people. No, it is a business imperative. What advice might you give to someone who's leading a BRG or an ERG, thinking, hey, we would love to win an award, or we'd love to really step up our game? Because actually the demonstration of what you've done within an 18-month period is pretty damn good. So advice before we move on into the lightning round.
I would definitely look at what your members are asking of you. So what are they wanting from you as a business resource group? So we are a lead team. So I'm the vice chair. I've got other members of the lead team alongside us, but actually we're representing the hundreds of women that sit within our business resource group. So we need to make sure that we're listening to them and we're supporting them with what they want from a business resource group. So it's not just a push, it's a pull from them as members. And the safe spaces around networking and development and personal growth were a huge part of what the members wanted from us as a business resource group. So that's definitely, it made us really cement our plans for the initial year. And again, it continues into this next year for us as well, around supporting them with their growth and their personal development, whether or not that be professionally or personally.
It's so simple but so powerful to listen and actually action based upon that. And it's interesting because I speak to many leaders kind of day in, day out, and they'll say, well, what can you advise with? And we always put it back to exactly what you have said there, and that is, what do the people within your organization who are interested in diversity and inclusion and belonging want? Because without the ask, as you say, it ends up being the push, and no one likes to be pushed to do something. People like to have that choice to make a decision of their own accord, and it drives up that engagement. And it's a great top tips there. And lightning round, you knew it was coming. 30 seconds to answer each of the next questions, and I'm going for the hardest one first, as I always like to do. What has been your secret to success?
So for me, again, really simple: education and curiosity. I would say never stop learning and always challenge the status quo, whether that's in theories, in practice, it's in the workplace. Always keep educating yourself. So never think you've done learning.
Any favourite quotes, books,
Yeah,
or podcasts?
yeah, definitely. So a favourite quote around the secret to success would be Albert Einstein's: "The important thing is not to stop questioning. Curiosity has its own reason for existing." So that's a great quote that I like to go back to. In terms of podcasts and series or authors, Sheryl Sandberg has been a huge, inspiring female leader for me for this last 18 months to 2 years, when we've been establishing our lean-in circles. The content that she's got available on that website and some of the tools and techniques, fantastic, and her book's great as well.
Oh, I love Lean In. It's a brilliant, it's a staple, a classic. Highly recommend. Highly
Yeah.
recommend. And what about authentic leadership? What is that to you personally?
So authentic leadership for me is it's bringing your whole self to work. It's showing the human being behind the job title. It's not afraid to showing your vulnerability and you as an individual to your team and to your peers and to your colleagues.
And what about who has inspired you most throughout your career or indeed your life?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if this will come as a surprise to most of the listeners and to yourself, but it's definitely my mum. She's an absolute inspiration and she still inspires me every day. And honestly, I wouldn't credit that I am the woman today sitting here without her. Yeah, she's a huge inspiration to me, absolute hero.
Had a small feeling that you might say that, but it's. I bet she's super proud. Super proud. Mum's the word. Hey, mum's the word.
Yeah, she's super proud of me and I'm super proud of her as well. Like I said, she was definitely championing diversity and inclusion long before most of us even probably knew what it meant.
Well,
Yeah, definitely.
I hope she's listening.
She will be listening.
Hi, Mum. And I guess, and finally, I guess I could take you back in time for just a moment to think about your younger self when you were growing up. Or, I guess if you were giving any advice to someone else who is in a similar circumstance, what advice would you give to the young Kat?
Take risks. I know that's probably a common one that comes through. So don't be afraid to take risks and don't be afraid to fail, but also don't be afraid to challenge the status quo. You never know who you might be inspiring by doing that. And it's that inspiration that you instill on other people that's the powerful element of that.
Thanks so much, Kat. What great answer. And thank you so much as well for being here on the show today. It's been a joy having you.
No, thank you, Leila. Honestly, I could talk about these topics for hours and hours. So thank you very much for your time.
Oh, bless you, bless you. It's honestly, it's been a pleasure, and there's been some great learning pieces. And true to form, I always do a short summary at the end, and I'll try and keep it as brief as I can, because again, I could, as everyone I'm sure who knows, listens, think, God, I've heard enough of her, because I could talk forever and a day about diversity, inclusion, and belonging. But what I particularly loved were, like some of those really heavy hitting figures, and I'm sure, as I said before, I think many women who are listening in, and or even guys as well, nodding their heads in agreement that, we really need to have that confidence to step up. Actually, many people think these things. Many people have these concerns. Many think, oh my goodness, I could never be in that kind of position. I wouldn't quite be good enough. Well, as you rightly pointed out before, pretty much every person does suffer from imposter syndrome or has suffered from imposter syndrome at some point in their life. And that's the guys as well. They may just be, without stereotyping here, they may just be better at hiding it. And I think women, we are built differently from guys. It is just a fact. We're built differently, we think differently, and talking often is the route to a solution, and certainly does help alleviate that stress. I tell my husband this all the time, actually. But I thought that was fantastic. And also some of the key learning points around the business resource group. Great title, business resource group, because I think that strategic priority as well really does demonstrate that it is something that is serious and not that nice to have. But the examples are pieces that I think anyone who's listening in today can really take back into their organizations or consider personally, because actually the personal development, the personal branding, which I think is even more important now within the digital world, where we see that often first before we speak to someone, is absolutely crucial. And then right back at the beginning of the podcast, where you shared your personal story, and that was through a simple question that I asked. I know you'll ask that to many other people. I would encourage anyone who's listening into the podcast today to ask the question about someone's background. You never know where someone has come from, what they have been through, the amazing stories that they can bring to the table and share, and ultimately benefit you, the wider organization, through that diversity of thought, and also the fantastic snowball effect that comes from that. We talked about the learning circles. We talked about Sheryl Sandberg, what a game changer she is, and you are, Kat, and many others within the organization. But this happens through hard work and persistence, and making sure the safe places where people feel they can be their true selves, that they really can open up. And the second one person opens up, the next person opens up. Straight away, Kat, you're talking about your personal background makes me want to share. And so the cycle goes on. And so I think what you've really demonstrated, is that absolutely everyone can be a leader and everyone has a voice. And simply by sharing a story, you can have a great impact. So again, I tried to keep it short, but I told you I'd end up rambling on there. So I will wrap it up now.
And I would say it's about creating a movement, isn't it? And that sharing creates that movement and creates that change.
Indeed. Thank you, Kat. And for everyone who's listening, if you missed anything, don't worry at all. In the show notes at the end of today's show, we'll be pulling out all of the key learning points so you can revisit at any point in time. You can also connect with Kat. We'll make sure we put her details in the show notes for you so you can get in touch. If you've been affected by anything from today's show, please do not be a stranger. Make sure you reach out. Make sure you do say something. My name's Leila Mackenzie Dallas, and you've been listening to the Diverse and Inclusive Leaders podcast, brought to you by Dial Global. You can visit us and download the podcast for free at www.dialglobal.org/podcast. Look forward to seeing you again very soon. Thank you so much for watching the Diverse and Inclusive Leaders podcast. Please do feel free to hit the like button below, or if you'd like to receive future notifications, do ping the notification bell here at the side. If you're interested in the audio version only, you can find it on the following streaming platforms. Any extra info and descriptions will be in the links below. Look forward to seeing you soon.